Hey guys, and welcome to episode 20 of Nope, There's Only Trash Here podcast. The date today is the 4th of August 2013, and we're back!
Yay!
Woo! I'm back on my many adventures around the globe. I've seen many things. I'm a changed man, you know, all that kind of stuff. But really, all I wanted to do when I was in the sun, having a cool beer, relaxing with friends, I really just wanted to talk about video games on the internet. So I'm just really happy to be back, so I can, do that again.
We could have done Skype. We could have Skyped and had some holiday podcast edition.
Yeah, but then there wouldn't have been that much to talk about. Although, actually, where is it? Yeah, it's over there. When I was in Amsterdam, I found a game shop, and I brought a Dutch copy of Ratchet & Clank, A Quest for Booty.
Okay.
I have no idea if it worked, but it says POW on the cover, so I'm assuming it does. I haven't played it yet.
Any particular reason why?
It was €5.
Oh, okay.
Which is like £3. It was like nothing. It was like, well, even if it doesn't work, it's a souvenir, I guess, and I've only wasted like £3 on the thing. So, yeah, it's my first Dutch game I've ever owned.
Did you do anything else in Amsterdam?
Well, I don't want to talk about that. Okay. Let's just keep that to myself.
This is a PG podcast.
It is a very PG podcast. There is some violence, but it's all good.
Okay.
Well, either way, let's get into... Oh, shoot, I don't have gaming news loaded up. This is how long it's been. It's been like 3 weeks. I'm just not prepared.
What? Come on now. No excuses.
Just really sorry. I'm going to take this time to apologise. I'm going to resign from the internet. It's going to be a whole big thing. Leave in disgrace.
No, don't do that. I can't do this on my own.
See, to the people listening, I did ask Joe if he wanted to do it, and he was like, nah, I do not want to do that.
It would turn into anything but gaming.
Yeah.
Movies, TV, but not gaming.
Just, if your dog's in the room, be like, hey!
Hey, come on over, yeah, woof woof, hey!
Awesome! You're just like Tom. Maybe even better.
Over to you, woof, yeah.
Awesome. I agree, Nintendo are having a rough year. If you see what I did there with the rough and the rough bit.
Wow.
Because he went rough.
That went way over my head.
I know, dog humour. It's quite complex stuff. It's quite hard to keep a hold of. Alright, I now have it loaded up, so let's start off with gaming news.
Gaming news.
Now, you would think, being on a break for 3 weeks, a ton of news would build up, just so much kind of different stuff that I would have to pick and choose different topics, be like, okay, we could probably say some good things about that, but we don't have time. Nope. Not at all. Not even close.
Well, at least that means that we're not kind of rushed for anything. We can take it slow and easy.
Well, we kind of do anyway, really.
Yeah.
It's not really high energy podcast, just lazy whatever podcast. But no, we do have 3 topics to talk about as always, and the first one for me is probably beating a dead horse, but it's a horse I love to beat, and that's the Wii U and the dire sales. I'm going to bring up the figures here, and because, everyone's been talking about how terrible the Wii U has been doing, but most of that is just speculation, people not wanting the thing. But now Nintendo has revealed their sales figures for the last quarter, which is when there were no games for the thing, and they're not looking good. Now, Nintendo are still in profit. The 3DS did amazing during this time. If I can see it here.
Isn't the new Animal Crossing like the 3rd biggest selling game for the 3DS now?
I believe so, yes. In Japan alone, it has sold 3 million copies. They just love their Animal Crossing, and it seems like everyone else has as well. It says that Animal Crossing has sold an additional 1.5 million in the West, but that's up to the 30th of June. So, obviously, there's going to be more sales figures there. And also, I believe Animal Crossing World, the other one on the DS, sold like 11 million. So pretty much New Leaf is now on the way to selling that like 11 million. But also it says that the 3DS sold 1.4 million over this time, and it sold 11.4 million games. That's a lot of games. I mean, it's not that surprising if you look up the lineup they had. Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, Donkey Kong, Fire Emblem, Lego City Undercover. They really were strong in this year. So, you know, this is definitely a result of them making good games and people being like, right, the 3DS is something we now want, and we got a ton of cool games for the thing, so that's how you make profit at the end of the day.
And now everyone's kind of shifted their focus away from the Wii U.
Yeah, I mean, people are still focused on the Wii U just because it's like an interesting, you know, in the same way if you saw a car crash, you would just stop and stare for a bit, you wouldn't look
definitely.
away. Yeah, oh yeah, point and laugh, take pictures, post on Facebook.
Well, but still.
Right, yeah, so the Wii U sales figures from the beginning of April, the end of the financial year, to June is 160,000 units.
Is that bad?
That's not a lot. Like I said, the 3DS sold 1.4.
Oh yeah, that's
and
good. That's a good point.
It's been out for 2 years, and the Wii U, it's sold like 500,000. Well, the total sales are now 3.61 million worldwide. So you can just see that there was obviously a massive drop off after the launch and the first few months. You know, because it only sold 1,600 units. So obviously before these, 3 months, it would have sold 6.5 million, and now it's sold 6.6 million. So that's brutal.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever going to be a time when Nintendo just decides to focus only on handhelds?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I made this prediction like before this generation started, that if any major thing was going to happen, because usually there's a major, something major does happen each generation, you know, like Sega dropping out and things like that, because each generation the companies who are in certain races does change, like Sony entering the handheld market, Sega dropping out the console one, Microsoft entering it, and we haven't seen that much change. But if there was going to be change, it would either be Nintendo dropping out of the console market or Sony dropping out of the handheld one. Now, if you had to ask me, I would say it's more likely for Sony to drop out of the handheld market, even though I think the PS Vita, I'm not too I think it's technically selling more than the Wii U. I'm not too sure on that, but it's still doing pretty terrible. But then Nintendo, I don't think they're a company who would drop out of the console race. And also, even though they're reporting these bad figures, they've got so much stuff on the way that I don't think Nintendo has anything to worry about long term. You know, like, just think about it. Like, the big games that sell consoles, or Nintendo ones, are the Mario games and the Mario Kart games. So, you know, you can see it with the 3DS. The 3DS did horrible, and then guess what? Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 came out. Massive boost in sales. They sell a stupid amount of copies, and then because they managed to keep up the flow of games, they're now all good. And I think the same thing's going to happen with the Wii U. It's just been a bit more of a painful process getting to that point.
It has taken quite a long time, hasn't it?
Definitely. Like, the 3DS didn't have such a long, painful approach to this. I only had to put up with, like, probably like half a year of waiting for the big killer games to come out. And Nintendo just got greedy, thinking they could make New Super Mario Bros. U and have that be enough to sell consoles, you know. So now we're hitting that point where the big ones are coming out. The Super Mario 3D World, I don't want it, but it will sell a lot of consoles. You know, Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers. Once these games are out, the Wii U's going to do just fine. But the question is, you know, is it going to do better or worse than the GameCube? Because if it does as good or worse, then that's Nintendo are going to do a radical shift. Like, the reason why people are, like, confused about why did Nintendo shift to the Wii is because the GameCube didn't sell at all. It sold less than 30 million units worldwide, where the PS2 sold 120 million. You know, that's 4 times more than the GameCube sold. So that's why they did the radical shift, and it paid off. And now we're going to see a case of, I don't think Nintendo would drop out, but we're going to see another radical different console come about if the Wii U doesn't manage to pick up. So all the people wanting a more hardcore Nintendo experience, they're not buying the Wii U, and they're going to be the same people bitching and moaning when Nintendo goes back to the casual, because that's how they make money.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
That's how it is.
I would kind of like the Wii U to fail just to see what they'd do next.
I'm
sorry.
Again,
it's just intriguing.
It's the car crash thing again.
Yeah.
You always check it out.
Yeah.
Well,
Although I did hear, talking of like all the games coming up for the Wii U, Joey were moaning about Super Mario 3D World being the 3D Mario game for the Wii U.
Yes.
I think I'm right in saying I heard that Nintendo said that that's not going to be the only big 3D Mario game on the system.
I haven't heard that, but that does sound about right. Because that would be awesome anyway. That's because the trend...
It's good news, yeah.
It's definitely good news, but if they were able to turn around Super Mario Galaxy 2 in 2 years like they did, then... Or it might have been more than that, actually. But yeah, so there's definitely room for another one, and really Super Mario 3D World is just Super Mario 3D Land co-op, and they've said that we were trying to make Super Mario 3D Land 4-player co-op. The 3DS wasn't compatible or wasn't capable of doing this, so we put it on the Wii U instead, and this is what this is. But then that is pretty depressing. It means that the first 2 major Mario games, which are the big console sellers for Nintendo, were throwaway Mario titles. New Super Mario Bros. U, it's just a throwaway title. Super Mario 3D World is being set up to just be a throwaway title, so they really are shooting themselves in the foot if that's the case, if they're not treating it as the big flagship game. Well, really it isn't the big flagship game, so they need that big Mario game, and they're going to be fine in the end. This year we got Super Mario 3D World, Donkey Kong Country 2, or Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, the Wind Waker HD, so I think they're going to be fine this holiday season. But yeah, these figures that they've announced, they're bad. They're it's doing worse than the GameCube did in the same time, and the GameCube ultimately was a pretty big flop for them. So let's just hope they can turn it around eventually.
Do you think, taking games out of the question, even though that is the main aspect of consoles, what could the Wii U do to kind of get people talking about it?
I think, their biggest mistake was calling it the Wii U. They were trying to, soak off some of that casual market. They thought that they had a big enough brand name with the Wii that they could just call it the Wii U, and people would be like, oh, it's something like, maybe I don't know exactly what it is, but it's got a cool iPad thingy with it, and it's called the Wii U, so I guess I'll get it. And instead it was the complete opposite effect. So I would like to say change the name, but it's way too late at this point. It's just, I guess they would have to make a slim version of it, something like that. I guess that would be the only thing they could really do, because otherwise it's a good console. If you take away the games, it's a good console. It can't produce the same graphics as the PS4 or Xbox One, but with games like Pikmin 3, it's very capable of making some nice games, and it is in HD. The touchscreen works well, and the gamepad is surprisingly comfortable. And also, they got the Virtual Console running up, and Nintendo is finally catching up with the internet service. So, if you just look at the bare bones console, then it's fine. But then again, nobody really is arguing about the Wii U being a bad console. Nobody's saying, I'm not buying that, that's stupid, like some people did with the Wii. Though obviously it went on to sell a lot, so it didn't matter. But with the Wii U, no one's saying that. They're just saying there's no games to play. And that's it. There's no other reasons really given. So once these games are here, with the Wii U being the cheapest console, I think we are going to see, during the next year, when Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Comes out as well, we are going to see that big shift towards the Wii U, even if it's people buying it as a second console to their Xbox One or PS4.
Well, that was what I was actually going to bring up, was... How much is the Wii U now, roughly? Do you know?
You can get one. It launched at £250 and £300, but you can now. It's now shifted towards 200, the basic one, and 250, the premium one.
You see, because if there's going to be a point where it's cheap enough that people will just buy it. If it's cheap, they'll buy it. I know that price cutting isn't really going to help them much now if they're not selling enough because they need the money. But if they did, I reckon a lot more people go, oh, well, it's only that much. Might as well pick one up, have a go.
I reckon.
Especially when the Xbox One and PS4 comes out.
Well, that's what they did with the Wii. They hit that perfect price point of £180, where it was like, it's a new Nintendo system, got some cool Mario games. I'm not that into the gimmick, but I can get it for my mum or whatever. You know, you can buy it. And then I think the Wii U was just out of that price range, but then it didn't hit that new price range where it was like, oh, it's expensive, but there's so much cool stuff with it, you're getting your money's worth. Instead, it just kind of sat in the middle where it was like too expensive just to buy it on a limb and just to, you know, go for the experiment, and it's not expensive enough where I'm buying a really decent bit of kit. And again, that's the whole problem with the Wii U. It's just sitting in the middle between casual and hardcore, where only the hardcore Nintendo fans really care, because everyone else is like, well, why should I? This isn't the console for me, because it's not really the console for anyone.
So are you saying that it should try and just stick with one thing and go with it?
Yeah, that's what they should have done. They should have went all in with the hardcore. They should have made it not as powerful as the Xbox One and PS4, but make it so the basic one is £300. Call it something else. Call it like Infinity or something, you know, like that. And then
Evolution.
yeah, exactly. Have the touchscreen be a bit better. Have the graphics be a bit more, bit bigger hard drive. So then the hardcore crowd would be like, oh, this is a console for me. And then developers, because the market has shifted more towards hardcore gaming with you know, you just have to look at the last E3 to see that, with every game being a shooter. It's shifting more that way. So Nintendo needed to make a console that was clearly in that market. Because again, they can just make their games because they make great games. Mario could be on whatever, it doesn't matter. Mario's been successful on every single console they've made. No, it doesn't matter what the console is. So they could have shifted it all to the hardcore, keep it cheaper than the PS4, but keep it up there so it's better than or noticeably better than the PS3 and 360. Better name, make it so the developers know this is a hardcore system with good internet, something they can get into, and then they would have had a hit on their hands, and people would want to invest.
What about changing the release time?
What? So it was earlier than 2012, or just closer to the PS4?
Oh, I'd say closer, but then when was it released?
It was released last holiday, so like November 2012. Which seems like a long time, but
it does, doesn't it?
So they just kind of, I don't think it's that they messed up releasing it early. I don't think the game issue is that big of a deal, even though that's what people see. It's just, again, it's really hard to get committed to a console like the Wii U when it's called the Wii U. It's got that price range. It doesn't have the killer games yet, and the Nintendo fans aren't that big anymore. Most Nintendo fans have grown up and moved on to FIFA or whatever, or Call of Duty, and that's just the way the market is. So there's just no place for Nintendo to just have people, you know, they don't have a big enough fan base anymore. It's just a bunch of 40-year-olds who used to play Super Mario Bros. 2 back in the day, and people like me who had an N64, and they're dwindling in their numbers, so they just didn't have the fans to give it enough momentum to keep it going until they got the games out, and that's just kind of sunk them a bit.
See, this is what I don't get, is that Nintendo are a very old company. They've had lots of experience in the market, right? For a long time, very big, lots of money. Do you think it was a legitimate mistake, or do you think that they're still carrying on with a plan they think's going to work? I don't understand. Do they recognise that it's not working, or are they thinking, yeah, no, we're still going to make it work. We're going to keep going.
It's a bit of both. It was a mistake because obviously they didn't want their sales figures to be this brutally low. I mean, it's horrendously low. So there was a big mistake made, and it was more in like the business aspect of things. But Nintendo making consoles, it's always been like their secondary thing in a weird way. Like, they sell console because they make quality games. So when the games aren't there yet, it's really jarring for Nintendo. Like, the games for the Xbox One aren't going to be there at first. Like, what, Risen? Fucking, you know, Killer Instinct? Are these games people really care about? No, not really. But it won't matter because it's not the only reason you get an Xbox One or a PS4 is the high quality of games. You know they're coming. But with Nintendo, that's pretty much it. That's the only appeal of buying a Nintendo console, to have those quality games. So when they're not there, like I said, it's really kind of crazy. It's like, why would I buy it at all? Why would I invest in this? It's why the 3DS, once the game started coming, people were like, oh, now I get it. So even the hardcore Nintendo fans, they jumped on board early. But even the casual fans were like, oh, they're making good games now. They're coming out regularly. I'll now buy the thing and invest. And also it was cheaper than the Vita, and Vita didn't have any games. But yeah, so I think it's a mistake, but I think they always kind of planned it out this way. But they kind of thought that maybe the Wii U, that was a solid name, and that New Super Mario Bros. Would be a solid enough title, and then Lego City would have been a bigger hit, and Rayman Legends wouldn't have got cancelled. It's like it all just piles on top of each other, where it all started with a mistake, and now it's just kind of crushing them with all these extra stuff that's coming in, and they can't save themselves until Mario Kart, and Super Smash Bros. Comes out.
Well, if that isn't a analysis of the Wii U, I don't know what is.
Oh, I could do this every podcast. I love it. It's the best. I brought this thing. I like looking at this thing and being like, why are you sucking? Why? I brought you at day one.
Oh.
Well, it's not sucking anymore. Again, with games like Pikmin 3, Wonderful 101, Wind Waker HD, it's picking up. It's just, again, the interesting thing is going to be how strong are they going to be against the PS4 and Xbox One, because the things they have going for them is technically a higher category of, higher library of games. It's been established for a year. It's going to be cheaper, but again, I don't think that's going to be enough for them to be a real contender. But again, we are going to see an increase in Wii U sales towards the end of this year, or I'll be very surprised if people don't think, you know what, I'm not into the Xbox One because Microsoft are terrible and there's no real games from the PS4. Screw it, I'll get Wind Waker HD and a Wii U for a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it will be quite interesting though, like when all the consoles are released, because most people will be keeping an eye on the Xbox One and the PS4, like who's outdoing the other. But keeping an eye on the Wii U will be quite interesting to see how it's affected.
Definitely. But I think we've got to move on. I don't want to, but I think we kind of have to.
Okie dokie.
So, the next one is about Take-Two. Take-Two are one of those weird companies where they're just a publisher. That's all they do. Like, EA and Activision and Ubisoft make games as well. They're now more, Activision are definitely more known for publishing, and I'm not even sure if they do make games, but they bought Blizzard, so I guess they do, but, whatever. But Take-Two literally just make, or just published games. So when you hear their name, it's pretty rare. So they've now come out and said that they're hinting at a Bully sequel, Bully being this open world game that Rockstar made, where you played like a bully at a school back on the PS2, and also a Red Dead Redemption sequel. And also, in case you're wondering, the reason why they're mentioning it, because they own Rockstar, I believe. Like Rockstar,
yeah, they distribute it. Yeah,
Rockstar is a big company, but Take-Two is a massive company. Like, I think they also do that. No, I can't remember who else they have, but they have a lot, and they make a lot of money. So, yeah, they're hinting at these sequels. Now, the way they're hinting at it is that on their website or something, they're saying how these are franchises, like, these are permanent franchises, and they've listed Red Dead Redemption as being one of those permanent franchises alongside BioShock and Tomb Raider. No, I don't think they have Tomb Raider, but alongside BioShock. So, yeah, that implies a Red Dead Redemption sequel, and that's pretty exciting news, I think.
Oh boy, it is. Oh yes, I'm pleased. Bully, not so much, but Red Dead, oh yeah.
Definitely, Red Dead. I mean, just the idea of what Rockstar managed to do on the Xbox 360 and PS3. Take that open world experience, which I think Red Dead Redemption has the best open world of any game. Like, I can't think of any better.
I think so. I was going to think about GTA San Andreas, but no, it definitely trumps it.
It's just more... there's nothing there, and it's 10 times more interesting. It's bizarre. It's all just sand.
But that's how much it immerses you in the game. It doesn't have to be everything there. It's just the tiny little noises, or the way like a little rabbit hops past. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, it's just so... It just sucks you in. So the idea of them doing that on the Xbox One and PS4... Awesome.
Oh.
Just so good. Like, even GTA 5 is meant to be, what, 3 times bigger than Red Dead Redemption?
Yeah.
And, that has an 8 gig install and all that bollocks, but, that's still impressive. So, Rockstar are a company who know how to make good games, and they're very professional in the way they make their games, and there's just a layer of polish they add onto every single game they make. Even if I don't like every one they made, they're still, you can't deny that. So I'm just really excited about the idea of next-gen Red Dead, because I thought of Red Dead when the Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer appeared, because with riding a horse and sort of sandy area, so it kind of gave me an idea and made me kind of think of that. But yeah, I think that's just really awesome, and I think out of any IP that came out this generation, Red Dead is one of the most deserving of a sequel.
When I finished the game, and I was reading other people's views of it and what they were saying, like the sequel, it's just such an obvious sequel you could do, is because in the game you play as Jack. No, you don't. You play as John. And in the game, loads of people talk about what he did in the past, like when he was part of the gang and he's rounding up all the other members of the gang, and all that dark history that the protagonist has. That I think would be a brilliant sequel/prequel, is with John and the gang before the game. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I don't really want to see a direct sequel in terms of story, Like, the son is kind of cool, but I don't want to see a full game with him, and I'd like to see John be part of the game in some degree, Like, maybe not playing him, but have him be around, something like that, Maybe they'll do the GTA 5 thing, where they have, 3 different characters in this big open world, something like that. And
maybe
there's just a lot they could do, because again, I'm not excited about the concept with the story. It's more Rockstar can make good open world games. Cowboys are cool. I would love to see them do another one on next gen.
I'd be interested to know if they, because I don't know when it's set. Red Dead Redemption. I think it's 1910s.
Yeah,
is it?
It's just before World War One.
So, I mean, really, you can only go backwards from that if you want it to be cowboys still.
Well, that was one of the interesting things about that game, that it was really late, and I guess they did that so they could take liberties with the technology and things like that.
Yeah, with Blackwater and things, yeah. But no, it'll be great. Bully, I don't know about.
Yeah, Bully I could take or leave again.
Did you play Bully?
No, I saw footage of it, it looked dumb.
I did play it I think I got it when it first came out, possibly a long time ago now, and I was really excited for it because it's like GTA, but you're at school. It's like, yeah, that's fun.
I
That'll
guess
be fun, maybe. And then you play it, and then you realise, oh, you have to actually go to lessons, and then you go to the lessons, and then it's just like QuickTime buttons to do things. Oh. And then you go do a story mission. You're like, oh yeah, this is cool, meeting all the pupils around the school and doing all this stuff. And then, you've got to go to lessons again. It makes you go to lessons. And every time you get into a story mission, you're like, nope, got to stop now. Got to go do some chemistry or some English. And the little mini game puzzles that they make you do are like the lamest things, memory tests, and that was disappointing.
It does sound appalling. But maybe it was just kind of ahead of its time, like, there was that weird phase with Fable as well, where video game developers were like, right, we can create 3D worlds, we don't have to deal with the horrible polygons of the N64 and PS1, let's try and stimulate real life as much as possible, and it was definitely hit and miss for that kind of stuff. So maybe nowadays with this more, now that there's more freedom in a way, like trends aren't quite as overbearing as they used to be on the PS2, maybe they now have the freedom and technology to actually pull it off and make it work and make it enjoyable rather than quick time events and stuff like that. I mean, Fable 3 and Fable 2 aren't good examples of this, but I'm sure Rockstar could do it.
Yeah, and the thing is that even though I didn't like it, Bully did seem to be a really popular game, oddly. To me, oddly, anyway, but other people seem to like it, so, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sure, I won't buy it, but knock yourself out. It's tough for you, but... Because, again, I don't like every Rockstar game, but, yeah, they do have that level of quality, like... I don't love... The only Rockstar game I really love is Red Dead Redemption. most of the other ones I could kind of take or leave, or don't really hate any of them, but I'm not a big GTA guy, you know. I don't hate the series, but I don't find it that interesting, you know. I just prefer something like Red Dead Redemption to be more interesting and just more enjoyable, but you know, whatever Rockstar does is probably going to be good, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. I don't want to be depressing, but
Oh, boy.
I do. One of the best things about Red Dead Redemption was playing it for the first time and like living in that world. And I don't know if they probably can. It's Rockstar, like you said. They know what they're doing, but I just wonder if they can recapture that and make it as good as the first one.
I think so. I mean, I hope so.
They're probably going to change it enough to be different and allow for more experiences anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the bizarre thing with Red Dead Redemption. The first 2 hours, you didn't do anything. You were just in that world, working on a farm, just checking.
But it was fun, wasn't it?
It was awesome. It was
fun. Yeah, that's what's so weird. It was really fun.
Like, some people, I think, checked out of Red Dead Redemption because it's a slow start. But if you know, let yourself get sucked into it, you can have a really good time, and you know, and it's a big game as well. So it's a shame if you skipped it because of the first 2 hours.
I just remember, I was playing with a friend, and I had to go ride to Armadillo or something, and on the way, the little red dot appeared on the map, and this guy was yelling at me like, "Come and do this." I'm like, "Oh, okay then, I'll go help him." So I finished that bit, and I was like, "Right, I've got to go to Armadillo now." And then another red dot came up. I was like, "Oh, someone's being hung or something, so I better go help them." I was like, it makes you do so many little things. It's great.
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man 2 thing, and it's something I love. A game that has stuff like that, where you will have like a general goal that you need to get done, but you can just waste your time doing other stuff, and you're just having a good time anyway. A game that can do that I love those sort of games. They're the best ones.
And actually, can I just, to any grammar Nazis listening,
Okay.
I just said hung. I think I meant hanged. There you go.
Is it hanged? Is it because
it sounds weird.
Is it because like you're doing the acting of hanging someone rather than hanging something up?
Yeah. So a man is being hanged. It's very weird, but I think that's right. Hopefully.
So you wouldn't say, "Look at that hung man." You would say, "Look at that hanged man."
Yes, exactly.
Because hung man might imply other things.
You see, on this podcast, you get gaming discussion and a little bit of English.
A little bit of English.
A little bit of English.
For every
lessons,
problem we correct, there's probably like 10 more we just ignore, but whatever.
Yeah,
We're getting there.
You can't get them all.
Wow. We'll try.
No one comment about them if we have, by the way.
Oh,
I don't want to see that.
No. Right, for the rest of the podcast, no more grammar mistakes. That's for sure. Just none of them.
Alright, I just won't talk. Fine.
Good idea. We'll have half an hour of silence, call it a day. Say goodbye, because you can't have a
Job
problem
done.
with that.
Yeah.
And that's
Bye.
it. Done.
No. Okay, what's on? What's next?
Alright, let's get to the final one. And that is this weird thing that kind of... I didn't really keep up with this story because it sounded quite boring. But people were talking about it on the internet and, you know, got nothing else to talk about. Fez 2 got cancelled. You know, they announced Fez 2 was being made back in E3. Not at E3, just at the same time at this other indie thing. And now the guy behind it called Phil Fish, which is just...
That is a good name.
It's so good. It's like if an 8-year-old had to come up with like a James Bond like knockoff, like rip-off, he would call it Phil Fish.
Fish.
Yeah.
Phil
It's
Fish.
Fish. And yeah, he's saying that it's cancelled. He just is done with it. The tweet that got tweeted out by the company called Polytron says, "It's with a heavy heart that we announce that Fez 2," says in capitals, has been cancelled and is no longer in development. We apologise for the disappointment, which I think is vain, you know, assuming people will be disappointed. But and then he also did a blog post which was really short. People were talking about this blog post, and I was expecting like a big essay, him breaking down the reasons. But no, it just says, Fez 2 is cancelled. I am done. Which we said about no grammar mistakes, but he didn't capitalise the I, so that's... We can now judge, being the masters.
Shame.
I take the money and I run. Again, that's really quite an awful sentence. This is as much as I can stomach. This really is like like a 13-year-old.
This is like a suicide note.
Yeah, it's like a 14-year-old emo's poetry, just sitting at home listening to terrible music, and they just write this.
It really is, yeah.
Take out the Fez 2 thing, and it's quite girlish. This is as much as I can stomach. I'm not sure if I said that already. This isn't the result of any one thing, but the end of a long, bloody campaign. You win. So...
I think I know what this is about, by the way.
Okay.
I think so, because I was reading something and someone linked to a Kotaku or something, some webpage. But what I think it's about is the abuse that he's got on the internet. I think.
Well, I did hear him say the word abuse somewhere in one of the quotes. Yeah, the actual word abuse.
And the thing is, this is actually hitting quite a serious topic about how we've mentioned it many times about how people have an ego behind the keyboard and how people have this kind of entitlement behind a keyboard and that allows them to just say what they want because they're anonymous, and that does lead to just so much abuse to certain people. And I think what this is about is that it may look like small things to us, but to the person that's having, who they're actually doing it to, it could just, if you don't have thick skin, it can get too much.
Yeah, this guy obviously wasn't ready for the internet, which is a bit bizarre and just has no... I mean, because really the arguments on the internet about this is, you know, is this guy legitimate in being like this? I'm tired of this industry and all these people being like this on the internet, so I'm just going to give in. Or is he just being a crybaby? Now, I'm siding onto the side of the crybaby because he wrote that really soppy blog post, and just reading it out made me feel dirty. And it's just, you know, me and you know, we're on YouTube. We have gotten some version of internet abuse, I would say, at some point. You know, someone just leaving a comment that's just ill-informed, unnecessarily personal, you know, things like that. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about that kind of stuff and receiving it is that it's the smallest thing that gets to you. It's not that he directly called you a horrible name. It's the way he slightly phrased, you know, a certain thing. So I guess this is, you know, this is where this guy's coming from, I would assume, that people are just giving him abuse and he can get through a lot of it, but people keep like repeating the same abuse maybe and phrasing it in a certain way that he just personally takes it, you know, personally. So I don't know what that is, and I would be interested in him actually explaining himself a bit more, but yeah, this is what's happened.
That's I can. Joe, you said you there's two sides to this. Whether he has actually had too much, or whether he's being a bit of a crybaby. I don't know where to stand, because he should have explained himself better. He should have. I mean, it's kind of a bit disrespectful to go out like that when you have fans of your game and, you know, saying stuff like "I'm taking the money and running." It's not good. You don't do that. But at the same time, we don't know what's been happening. And it's almost kind of wrong to say that, oh well, if you want to do this kind of stuff, you got to have a thick skin. You got to be used to the internet, because that's allowing this sort of stuff, and it shouldn't really be allowed. It has come to be allowed. Like, you're allowed to be mean on the internet, but you're not. You shouldn't be. It's a very big issue.
Yeah, it's definitely
this is
a
just
big
a tiny
issue.
aspect
I mean, I believe people should say whatever they want. It's more people's reaction to stuff that's a problem. Like, someone should be able to, again, if he puts his email out there, someone should be able to send him an email and send him tons of abuse. But he should be able to process that fairly. You know, he doesn't deserve the abuse, but this is the human race. There's a lot of terrible people out there. So and if people react to it rightly, like, someone should be able to put a blog post saying, I don't even want to come up with something horrible, but they just post something awful. Now, if people then post saying, yeah, awesome, I agree, then I think that's a problem. But if then people are saying, this guy's a jerk, I don't like him, you know, leaving comments saying you're terrible, then I have no problem with that process. It's just, again, it's a horrible process for the price of, you know, freedom of expression on the internet. But it's the price that everyone pays for being on the internet, and you know, this guy should kind of realise it. I mean, my main problem with this guy anyway is that he's not being honest. There's obviously something that's bothered him. and he's just doing this fake honesty thing that people like to do on the internet, especially with Facebook and Twitter, where they'll leave like 2 words, like "I'm done," and then people just leave a comment saying, "Oh, how are you? What's going on? You okay?" When really they could have just posted exactly what was on their mind and throw it out there, but no. So this guy to me seems a bit more of an attention seeker because he's not being honest. It's the internet again. He could just make a blog. He made a blog. He just chose not to be honest and break everything down. Because when people are honest on the internet, that gets a lot more respect than I think people realise. Like someone just being honest with everything, people enjoy that, and you can respect it and you can see where they're coming from even if you don't agree.
Well, let's firstly put this: honesty is your main policy.
Oh, absolutely, every day.
It's in the name. But it's odd because we can only comment on one side of this story. We can only comment on the outcome. We don't know the cause. We can only comment on the effect that it has. So because there is, like you say, all right, maybe there is a price you have to pay to be on the internet, and you have to expect to receive hurtful comments, but there is still a line. There is still a line. People, that line is, I don't know what that line is, but it's starting to get noticed because Twitter and Facebook are seeping into actual acts of crime. People are getting arrested because of things they put on Facebook or Twitter, and it all depends on what people put in the first place. Like you could say, "Oh, I think your game's crap. You suck." But when you say something like, well, I don't know. I like you. I don't want to say anything, but you can get very personal and you can get very mean, and you can get not illegal, but verging on dangerous.
Everyone knows that that's wrong. Like everyone can just say,
exactly.
"Yeah, we know that's not cool."
So I'm just really interested to see why. I'm more interested about this whole story.
Well, he's kind of sort of mentioned
because he hasn't
why,
answered it,
but he hasn't.
Yeah,
he needs to expand.
He does.
I would give
if people want to take him, if he expects people to take him seriously with this, he needs to explain.
Yeah, because the thing is, everyone is just emo and angsty on the internet. You see that all the time. But this has directly cancelled the production of a game which was a sequel to a pretty successful game. Fairs, I played it. It was awesome. It was a really cool idea. Didn't really like the retro style, but it was still a fun, interesting game to play. So the fact that apparently internet abuse has directly caused this game not to be made, so whereas maybe a year from now I would be playing Fez 2, but because somebody on the internet gave him some abuse. But again, we don't know if that's what happened. Maybe somebody...
Exactly.
I would assume that maybe it's somebody in his life, like that he actually knew in real life. There was some drama there, something like that. Because that's the only reason you would pay attention to it, right? If like people in your real life that you talk to, you've been friends with for years, then kind of jump on that train. That's when you got to be like, okay, I'm done. But it's just weird that these two things are connected, and it's like the first time that these two things have been connected, where people on the internet has directly affected somebody enough that they cancel a game. It's bizarre.
I can't remember. Don't worry. You just said something I was going to reply to, but don't worry. It's gone.
Awesome.
Yep.
Right. That doesn't count as a grammar mistake, by the way. That's a pause is not a grammar mistake. In case those Nazis are still on our case about.
They have their notebooks. They're ready with their pen.
They are done. But if they say anything mean, I'm cancelling production on the podcast. I'm afraid, guys. That's how I'm going to have to go.
I'm out. We're taking all the money and running.
All that sweet
money.
All
the money.
All that nectar that I've raked out thanks to the podcast.
You know, it's proper bags of money with a dollar sign on it.
I'm going to take out all the money from the bank and move to Hull and live the sweet life.
Really?
Because I can't afford Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Is Hull, Hawaii, kind of similar.
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Sounds beautiful.
Okay. Right, Hull is now being renamed Hawaii.
Hawaii.
It's been decided.
And if you don't trip up while saying it, you're saying it wrong. You got
that's not a grammar mistake.
Hawaii. You gotta if you just do it like, oh yeah, Hawaii, then you gotta make sure.
It's actually spelled like Hull and then again Hawaii, where you're Stuttering with it.
It's got to be a new low in terms of stupidity for the podcast, but I love it. It's the best.
Let's pick ourselves up then.
I guess so. So that's it for news pretty much. So let's get into recent releases. Nothing also came out. I guess July is a pretty dead month. It used to be the case that all the film releases were released during June and July, because, to coincide with the films. But now it has got to the point where nobody cares about film releases. Spider-Man 2 picked it up, but nobody really cares anymore.
Has there not been any Monsters Inc. games?
No. There were
no
Monsters...
Wolverine games?
No. There was one for X-Men Origins. There was X-Men Origins Wolverine, but there hasn't been one for the Wolverine. And there was a Monsters Inc. game when the original came out, but there hasn't been one for this one. So I guess the discussion we had on the podcast before is really coming true.
What about The World's End, the video game?
No.
Come on.
I wouldn't...
No? Nothing?
No. I mean...
Same.
It was an alright... I liked it. It was a decent film. I don't think drinking in a pub, or 12 pubs, would really translate into a game, but...
Maybe not.
Shaun of the Dead would have done, but...
Oh, yeah.
Such a good film. So good. But anyway, so the only game that's really come out is Pikmin 3. Now, I don't want to talk too much about Pikmin 3 because, I've got a review on the way. It's in the works, it's in development, I'm just putting it together right now. It's actually kind of crazy because it's weird because back in school, if somebody said, write like a 2,000 word report, I would have been like, that sucks. But now that I have to write these reviews, if they don't hit a certain word limit, I'm just like, ugh. So I've actually managed to hit 2,900 words with this Pikmin 3 review.
Your English teacher would be so proud.
Oh, it's terribly written. It's just a mess. Like, to read, I have a hard time reading my reviews when I have to. It's, like, horrible. I don't use proper grammar. Those fragment lines are just everywhere. But
they don't count. They don't count. They're not right.
But they mock me. I just feel like I need to get rid of them, but I don't know what's wrong. It just makes me sad, but...
So, is this... you've been working on this review now for a while.
Sure.
It's a big game, Pikmin 3.
Big game.
Quite a new game, obviously.
Very new.
You don't review many new games.
No.
So, is this going to be your flagship review?
No, because unfortunately, I don't know if anyone's interested about this, but that's not how reviews work. Like with any YouTube video, you never know which one's going to take off. Like, my flagship review is Yoshi's Island DS. And who the hell knew that was going to be the one out of all the one? The one I did afterwards was Resident Evil 6, and I put 10 times more effort into that review than the Yoshi's Island one. But the Yoshi's Island one has 5,000 views, and the Resident Evil one has 30. So you just don't know, really.
Okay. But we'll hype it up anyway.
Definitely. I will upload it.
Ooh.
And that'll be the end of that, I guess.
Oh.
But anyway, so yeah, expect that. I'm not going to talk about the game, expect it next Saturday. But I'm going to go into the topic of the podcast from Pikmin 3 because... now, we were talking about the internet. This is a really weak segue. And IGN is a website. So
Web? Internet?
Perfect. So this is something, it's again, it's a pretty easy target, but everyone when we buy games, reviews are like becoming a major deal. Like, people are trying to become more informed with reviews, and if a game gets bad reviews, it doesn't sell. It's pretty much that simple. Like, the video game, that's where video games are. With films, it's not quite the same case. Like, if a film gets bad reviews, people will still go see it. It's not a necessary link. But with video games, I guess because you're going out and spending 40 quid on day one, people make sure they look up reviews. They talk with mates. There'll be like a group of 5 people, and then one of them would have looked up reviews and they'd be like, oh, let's go get that game, and that guy would be like, nah, it got a terrible review, and then none of them buy it. So really, reviews are becoming more and more important, but reviews aren't becoming more and more legitimate in the same way, or you can't trust them in the same way. And I got really annoyed with IGN because they gave Pikmin 3 an 8.8, if you can believe it. And that really annoyed me for a lot of reasons, because it's a really good score, 8.8, And again, it doesn't matter. I still brought the game and really enjoyed it. But 8.8 shows how every single reviewer has their own bias, and the fact that they can just write their review with these strong biases and then sink games because of it kind of is depressing. And I kind of don't want my video game market to be dictated by people who are just biased and, potentially being paid off.
Before you go on,
Okay.
is 8.8 too high or too low?
It's too low. And,
It's too low.
And here's why. Because when I do reviews, comparing myself to IGN here, 5 is an average game. And that's how numbers work. 5 is dead in the middle, so it's either a mediocre experience but not a bad one, or there's a lot of good points but they're outweighed by the bad points, and that's a 5. On a scale of 0 to 10, 5. IGN doesn't work like that, and most media stuff doesn't work like that. They shift it, so it's 7 is the mediocre game, but it shouldn't be. That's completely wrong. And the reason why it's shifted is because they like giving games higher scores, and it also makes it hurt more when they give it a lower score. Because they don't want to piss off any of the people, making the games. So if they give, they gave Dead Space 3 a 7.9, now, it deserved a lot lower than that based off their review, or based on the scale of 0 to 10, but they gave it a 7.9, so it's okay, we didn't think it was that good, but we gave it a 7.9 because it wasn't terrible, and they can still keep up their relationship with EA. So it's really quite deceitful, and when you give a game an 8.8, you're excluding it from the club, which is 9 and above. And the 9 and above are the games of the year, pretty much. The top 20 games of the year are the ones that got 9 and above. So again, it's IGN being biased towards Nintendo because they just couldn't give it a 9, and it deserves a 9. And I read the review, and the reasons they gave were it's kind of short, but it's 8 to 10 hours long. I beat it in 9.5 hours. And they gave Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 a 9.6, even though that's 6 hours long. And that was about it. There wasn't really any other complaints or legitimate complaints that they had with the game. So, again, it just shows a bias towards Nintendo. They're trying to keep up with the trends of we're currently in an anti-Nintendo phase, so they want to keep up with that. And they gave Halo 4 a 9.8. 9.8! That's so high! That's ridiculously high. That's one of the best games of the generation. That's top 10 games of the generation. Halo 4. Which it bloody well isn't. I played the thing, and it's not terrible, but it's not a 9.8. If they gave it a 9.2, then I could understand. Again, they have the shifted scale, so 7 is in the middle, and 9.2 is oh my god, Halo fans, it's the best. They just, that review was a 3-page review, and it was all buzzwords. It's a cinematic experience. It's, breathtaking visuals. It's all just buzzwords to just get the review going. So that's why it annoyed me so much, and that's why I'm bringing up IGN and reviews in general, because they can get their bias out in these subtle ways, but then they're just sinking games for no better reason than trends, trying to be popular, trying to be cool, trying to be that guy, and just money at the same time.
This just sounds like the most stupid thing ever. Ever. It sounds
directing that towards me or IGN? I just want to make it...
IGN.
Yes.
IGN. It sounds like IGN, imagine them, they're this group of kids, and you can't come into our club unless you follow our rules. And, what you say 7 is average?
Yeah, if you break it down, 7 is what they give an average game.
So, is there any kind of difference between 1 and 4, for example?
Well, they just put games in that thing, and the scale... No, pretty much. The scale doesn't matter. It's just they put it in that ballpark to be this game's awful. It's really terrible, just to, make an example of it.
So, why would... basically, all the scores are inflated.
Yeah.
They're all too high up that end. Why didn't... So you just said why they don't do it, like to please people, even if it is crap. Like, what did they give Colonial Marines? I wonder.
They gave it. That's a very good question. They gave it a low. I think it's 4.5 or something.
Okay, so that like is super bad. Like even they say that's
that's
crap.
just absolutely terrible. No way in hell you should play it.
Well, at least that's not deceiving then, I suppose.
Well, it's not that. That's the thing. It's not them. They don't outright lie, and that's what makes it frustrating. Like, you can still generally get the reviews, like review scores, and see where you're going if you read the review, the pros and cons. But then they turn around and give 9.8 to Halo 4, and then they give The Walking Dead Survival Instinct a low score. I actually kind of liked that game, and when I reviewed it, I gave it a 6.5 because I thought, with 5 being right in the middle, mediocre, I was like, it has some technical issues, but there's enough interesting ideas here that if you're a fan of the zombie genre, you could get some enjoyment out of it, as long as you don't mind the lack of polish. But IGN just completely ripped on the game at all, didn't really mention any of that stuff, said it's completely awful, and Activision made it, and obviously it's another Walking Dead game, so they're so cool underground hip guys because they like the Walking Dead Telltale game. They called it games like masterpiece, a compelling piece of art, and they're going to go that route. And it's just kind of frustrating to see this.
I'll be honest. I don't read any reviews, to be honest.
Oh.
I'm like the complete opposite of all these people that stick to IGN's word. And to be honest, I think the best way I would pick a game nowadays is either A, just watch it on YouTube, if it's a game that's already come out, or, preview footage of it, or B, YouTube reviews by just normal people.
Yeah, by me. Yeah, definitely. Good point.
By Honest on 23, yeah.
Guaranteed.
Just only his ones. But no, that's because that's the only way, and not just one, you'd watch a couple. That's the only way you're going to get a decent kind of interpretation of the game, to be honest.
Well, again, you have to be aware that there's a bias when it comes to game reviews, so if you know the bias, it's no big deal. Like, again, with YouTubers, you can watch their videos, you can watch 3 or 4 of their videos, and if they're, say, a big Sony guy, or if they love Nintendo, or they just really think Microsoft are cool, or they have a thing against Naughty Dog. You can get that alignment, you can understand it and see where they're coming from, so it's not quite as bad when they show biased. You know what I mean? So, and you also kind of get a bit more honesty with a YouTube review when they're not being paid to play it. Yeah. So, that's definitely a good thing. But here's what I'm going to do, though. I went on the Wikipedia page of IGN, and there's a list of 28 games that they gave a 10 out of 10 to. Perfect score. Now, of course, when it comes to, the media and sites like IGN giving 10 out of 10s, they have to have 10 out of 10 on the list, right? Like, really, 10 out of 10 is a perfect game, and it
shouldn't exist.
It shouldn't technically exist, because no game is perfect. Every game has flaws, so you can't have a perfect game. But I think we can all accept the media not doing that, because they have to be like, right, instead, 10 out of 10 is a must-have. It's a game of the generation.
It's for the box. It's for the box art. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so I have no problem with them giving out 10 out of 10, even though they shouldn't. That's fine, But let's read out this list. It's a good list. 28 games. Should I start from the earliest one they gave, or the latest one they gave?
Go latest.
Let's go latest, alright? So, number 1 is The Last of Us, which I wouldn't give it that score, but I can understand it,
Not perfect, but must have.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, again, that's why you got to see it as, are these must-have games, Because your personal opinion is never going to match with a review. You're going to go insane if you think your personal opinion is going to match every review. But everyone has their lenience on it. I wouldn't give The Last of Us 10 out of 10, but I can see where they're coming from. It's a well-made game. It does a lot of things right, so no problem there. Next one is Infinity Blade 2 for the iOS.
I have no idea what that is.
It's like, well, let's click on it. It came out 2011. It's like I'm not too sure if it's a JRPG, but it's like an RPG on the iPhone. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, dude. But gotta have
I'm not
it.
having that. No.
Play it every day.
No.
Forget Red Dead Redemption. Flush that down the toilet. You need
that better be on there.
It kind of is. It's
Okay.
messed up. The next one is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Now, I would disagree with that, but that's just because of my personal preferences when it comes to the Zelda franchise, and every Zelda fan is like a bit crazy. But I can see it. Again, good graphics. They did a lot of things right. I might have my own personal gripes with it, but again, I can see it. Next one is Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. Which, I mean, sure. Why not?
Isn't Uncharted 2 supposed to be the best one?
Yep, they didn't give that a 10 out of 10 though. That's not on the list.
Okay.
They thought that was, Uncharted 2, it was pretty good. Uncharted 3, 10 out of 10. Must have.
Okay.
But again, in 2011, they gave 4 10 out of 10s. Or 3 main ones. So, to them, ignoring the other 2 because they don't count, Uncharted 3 and The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword were the 2 best games of the year by far. Like, if you were going to buy any 2 games, Uncharted 3, Skyward Sword. And that's when it kind of breaks down, and
I don't see that.
You just don't see it. But it gets worse, don't worry. The next one is Chrono Trigger, but it's the Wii Virtual Console release. So if they wanted to make 10 out of 10 to get people to click on it and care about the review, then good. I mean, Chrono Trigger is a really great game. I don't know if I would give the re-release on the Wii a 10 out of 10, but whatever, I'll let it go. Next one is Pac-Man Championship Edition DX on the PS3 and 360, released in 2010.
Okay.
How could you justify that? It's like, okay, it's the best version of Pac-Man, but it's the best version of Pac-Man. It's Pac-Man. Why is it a 10 out of 10 must-have?
That's crazy.
How can you justify that? It's like, and again, they only gave 3 10 out of 10s in 2010. So Pac-Man, you have to have played Pac-Man. Stupid. Right, next one is Red Dead Redemption. Undead Nightmare. The actual game didn't get a 10 out of 10, just the DLC with zombies in it. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Bloody good DLC. Oof.
Okay, we'll let that slide.
Well, let it slide because that's a DLC score, and again, you can just tell they wanted people to be buzzed about it. Like, oh, they gave it a 10 out of 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one is Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the Wii, which I have no problems with. I prefer the first one, but again, preference. It's a really well-made, gorgeous-looking 3D platformer, so got no problem with that. Next one is Metal Gear Solid 4, which anyone would tell you it's like the worst Metal Gear Solid in the franchise. 1 was the best, in my opinion, then 3, then 2, then 4. 4 is just a bloated mess, and it has some good things going for it, but again, it's not a 10 out of 10 must-have.
Right.
Right, next one is GTA 4. Yeah, I'm going to tell you now, that's the only GTA game on this list.
Wrong.
So, no? Oh, interesting.
I would disagree, but personal reasons, like you say, personal preferences.
Now again, would it be fairer if this game didn't get 10 out of 10, but San Andreas did?
No. No, they
Again, thinking about it from their point of view, they give the 10 out of 10s to the must-have games. Do any of the GTAs being well-designed games to serve one.
I suppose they are games you have to play at least once.
Yes.
So maybe it does deserve 10 out of 10. Maybe.
Yeah, but
maybe.
I mean, San Andreas would get over 4, right? I mean, I preferred 4 to San Andreas, but San Andreas did more. And, okay, we'll just move on. Next one is Tornado Mania.
What?
For mobile phones.
Oh.
Doesn't even say iOS. It came out in 2006.
Right.
10 out of 10.
Alright. Well, it was a different time back then.
It was developed by Digital Chocolate.
Ooh.
And you play a scientist trying to create your own utopia, but tornadoes are around.
Oh no!
And it 10 out.
I want to play that game now.
It's the best, dude. It's so good.
It's must have.
What's the game you've really enjoyed that you played recently?
Assassin's Creed 2?
Get rid of it. Didn't get 10 out of 10. Tornado Mania,
okay.
every day.
I've got to play it.
That's what you got to be playing.
Mm.
Right.
Okay.
And then there was a 5-year gap And then Dragon Warrior 3 for the Game Boy Color in 2001.
Well, this is getting interesting now. Like, we're going early 2000s. Okay.
Yeah, this is going way back.
Way back.
So we don't even have the hype around it. We didn't know how hyped people were for Dragon Warrior 3. I guess the first two were masterpieces, and the third one just was the cherry on top. Just, no, not 10 out of 10. The next one was The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, which I don't agree with. And that's not even...
I've never even heard of those Zeldas.
They're the ones that Capcom made for the Game Boy Color. And they, like, linked together. And...
Oh.
Yeah, not bad. And they're not 10 out of 10 games. Again, Skyward Sword, I can see it. But these are just... They're good games, but not 10 out of 10 games. Next one, they love the Game Boy Color for some reason. It gets really weird with the Game Boy games here. Next one is Pokemon Gold and Silver, which I can understand. They improved upon the original, and the originals were already good. So
yeah, I can see that.
the next one is Metal Gear Solid for the Game Boy Color. It's just a little stupid Metal Gear Solid game on the Game Boy that you just play on the bus. Just stealth elements in it. Different colours, because it's Game Boy Color, so it's not black and white. 10 out of 10! The best
Colour.
game. The next one, Magical Tetris Challenge for the Game Boy Color.
And what year was this?
2000.
2000. Now, this is 13 years ago.
Yeah, Magical Tetris Challenge, though. It's got Mickey Mouse on the cover. And
Mickey Mouse must have.
They didn't even get... It came out on N64 and PS1, and only the Game Boy Color version got a 10 out of 10.
What?
It's just...
They really did love that, didn't they?
They just can't get enough.
Maybe that's the only thing they had back then.
I haven't played it, but... Well, in that same year, 2000, I think Majora's Mask came out. What else came out? It was the end of, like, the N64... So, I think Conker's Bad Fur Day, maybe, Banjo-Tooie. I only know the N64 ones, unfortunately, I don't know. I think Spyro 3 probably came out in that same year.
Yeah, that sounds about
right.
right.
But no, Magical Tetris Challenge, that's what you got to be playing.
Tetris.
Why else everyone's going to hate you and call you a nerd, really. The next one is SNK versus Capcom, the match of the millennium. Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
So when I saw this title, I thought, it must have been one of those Dreamcast fighters that were meant to be really good. I don't know much about fighting games, so fair enough. But no, it's on the Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Well, it's good that they're branching out, or they branched out to the Neo Geo.
From like 1999 to 2001, the only games they gave 10 out of 10 to were just handheld games.
That is odd.
Apparently nothing was going on the console scene.
That is very odd.
It's bizarre. Okay, so next one. God damn it. Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure for the Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Must have.
Must have. You can't go without it. It's the only Sonic game to get 10 out of 10. And then I just clicked on the thing. GameSpot gave it an 8.3, saying it was really good, but it was a bit short and wasn't that difficult. But not IGN.
I wonder if they'd go back and change their scores.
I hope so. I mean, when I saw this list, my mind was blown that these were... Because these are the 28 must-have games according to IGN. Now, of course, you can allow a couple through the net, because, again, they don't actually do it like that, you know? But, again, there's way too many games here that just shouldn't be on this list.
Weird games.
Just bizarre ones. Okay, so the next one's Pokemon Yellow, which, I mean, I guess... It was a big thing at the time, Pokemon.
Pikachu, yeah, followed you around, yeah.
I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 because it didn't really do much over the originals, but I guess if you...
I just said Pikachu follows you around. Is that not enough?
I'm really sorry. I thought I didn't hear you. I
that
thought
not
you
enough
said,
for you?
Diglett follows you around, but it's goddamn Pikachu I gotta have.
And you turn around and you see if he's happy, and then that's everything.
That was
amazing.
so cool when I was a kid.
10 out of 10.
God, I had such a good time playing that when I was 8. But I didn't write a review of it and give it a perfect score. Right, the next one, right?
Did it work hard enough?
No, apparently not. The next one, Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color.
Of course.
Perfect. There's been no better golf game. Golf game. It's a game where you play golf. How can it be the best game? Next one is Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast. Again, I don't know much about fighting games. I think the second one was meant to be better, but I don't know about Dreamcast fighting games, so I guess we'll let it go.
I have nothing to say about that, so I won't say anything.
Next one is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, which, out of all the Game Boy Color games we've seen, is probably the most deserving, but I don't know if it does deserve a 10 out of 10. So bizarre. Next one is Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy Color. Do you know what that game is?
No.
It was a port of the original NES game on the Game Boy Color.
See, I thought that was too obvious.
That's
But
all
was
it
it
was.
really just that?
That's all it was. There was a few extra modes in there, but, standard stuff, not really that good. It was just a port.
Right.
Perfect port, though. No better. Ugh.
Well,
Apart from Pac-Man,
you
of
mean-
course.
no, Pac-Man's... Yeah, don't argue with Pac-Man.
Oh, I wouldn't dare. Right, the next one is Shanghai for the Atari Lynx.
How far do these go back, out of interest?
It goes back to 1998.
Wait, so what year are we in?
1999.
Oh, okay.
So, do you remember playing Shanghai on your Atari Lynx?
I remember Pokemon Yellow.
I've never even heard of the Atari Lynx. What the hell is that?
It's...
I know the Atari Jaguar, but not the Lynx.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, the next one is Joust on the Atari Lynx.
Joust.
Did
So,
you ever play
jousting.
Joust?
I can't say
It's
I've
that
ever
weird.
jousted.
I think it was that weird ostrich game. That was an arcade game. So again, another perfect port.
Wait. So it's not even like knights. It's ostriches.
It's I think it's knights. You're like knights on ostriches.
Well, that just sounds
It's
amazing.
awesome.
10 out of
It's
10.
not 10 out of 10 though. Like me and my mate got drunk once and downloaded the demo on Xbox Live and just played it all night. It was so good. But not 10 out of 10.
Okay.
Next one is Checkered Flag for the Atari Lynx.
Where are all the good games?
I don't know. Oh, apparently
What are these games?
Apparently the Lynx, surprise, surprise, is a handheld system that Atari made.
Right. Okay.
And this is
yeah.
and it was a remake of a game they made for the Jaguar, Checkered Flag.
Where's the N64 games? Where's the PS1 games?
No,
Where?
there was nothing good on the PS1. Nothing got 10 out of 10 on the PS1.
How long does this list go on
We
for?
got two more, but they're
Okay.
probably they're fine. The next one
Okay.
is Pokemon Red and Blue for the Game Boy.
Mhm.
Again, another handheld title getting a 10 out of 10. And then the final one is the only one I can fully get behind, and that's The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the N64.
Oh.
Because that's meant to be like the best game of all time, and it's one of my favourites, so I'm completely okay with that. But that's a hard list. That is not a good.
That's not a good track record, to be honest.
if like, I reckon it's got to be 99% of people who read IGN and take their score seriously have never seen this list.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the creme de la creme. This is what all games are striving for. Infinity Blade 2, Mario Golf on the go.
This is IGN's perfect games. This is what they judge everything else on.
Because
You've got to know about this list.
what you're giving games 10 out of 10 to is how credible you are as a thing. That's your backbone. Like what you gave all your previous scores, or all your previous games you review, what scores you gave them is the backbone for every single review you then make. So, if this is where they're coming from, even if we go from 2006 onwards, starting with Tornado Mania, like, say it's like, back in the day they just were drunk or whatever, so the new ones, from 2006, it's still not a good list. Tornado Mania, GTA 4, Metal Gear Solid 4, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Red Dead Redemption, Undead Nightmare, Pac-Man, Chrono Trigger, Uncharted 3, Skyward Sword, Infinity Blade 2, The Last of Us. That's still not a good backbone for your reviews. And I think people just need to be aware of this. I mean, people aren't stupid. Most people know about these bias. But when you break down, like, when a number is so critical nowadays to a game's sales, but the number is based off a system that is just horrendously broken like this. Yeah, it's just embarrassing.
Well, I've got to ask, are the IGN reviews done by different people? I'm assuming they are.
Yes.
They are. Right, well, there is your fundamental problem, because before the internet, really, TV and newspapers gave reviews, right? There'll be reviews of films or reviews of, I don't know, operas, theatre, whatever. And generally, they're done by one person. For example, I listen to BBC Radio 5 Live Mark Kermode. He does film reviews, and that's who I go to for film reviews.
Okay.
Because I know, it's like what you were saying, you know the ins and outs of IGN's review system. So you know when they're actually saying, oh, well, I can actually ignore that because they're wrong about that. Well, I can do the same with him. He's wrong about that because I actually like that part of films. But still, when there's more than one person doing reviews, that's when it gets tricky, or trickier, because as much as they can try and push them to be in the same mindset, you can't do that.
Well, again, if we're just talking about 10 out of 10s though, surely that's something that goes through the whole department. Like, you would have to think some guy by himself can't just be like, Dragon Warrior 3 is pretty damn good, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 and just see what happens. Like, you would hope that they have they're a good enough company where they don't allow scores to just kind of go through. But then it seems like they like to just give games like 10 out of 10s just as publicity kind of stuff. Like, they gave Metal Gear Solid 4 a 10 out of 10 because not because it deserved it, but because it was like a trendy kind of thing to do. And that's why with the Pikmin 3 thing I was annoyed, and with Halo 4, people were liking 343 Industries before the game came out, so they gave it a high score. If people in general were just not liking them that much, were missing Bungie, just thought Bungie was 10 times better, then they would have gave it a lower score even if it was the exact same game, and that's just depressing.
Do they have, like, one person will do Nintendo games, and one person will do Xbox games, or one person will do the Halo franchise?
Well,
is it like
kind of. They have the departments, so there'll be one of maybe 3 people will do the Nintendo games, and one of maybe 3 people will do, another one.
Okay.
So they do keep it contained, but it's just 8.8.
It's just that such a big company. There must be some way of they're doing it that's just wrong.
I think so.
Because even if they fixed the scoring system, say if they brought it back down to 5 actually being average, there would still be problems with bias, like you say.
But a bias, if a bias is like slightly changing a score, then it's not too bad. But then again, if you're gonna give it a high score, you gotta stand by it. You can't just quote buzzwords and just get away with it. That's the problem. And also, me saying about just to clarify, me saying about 7 being the middle, that's just me speculating. They've never come out and said that. But when you read enough reviews from the media, like, because if you imagine if a game you were looking forward to averaged like 62% on Metacritic, you'd be like, what the hell happened? Wasn't that game meant to be a good game? I guess I won't buy it anymore. But really, a 62% should be better than average. Not amazing, but a decent game that if you have the interest, then you'll enjoy it. But it's not. You're like, oh, I don't really want to get a game that only got 6.0 out of 10. I'm just going to avoid it. And that's just how the media's done it, and that's how now everyone thinks.
I say change it. Revolution.
I think so. Well, that's why. That's why YouTube and YouTube reviews are really good, because now anyone can get their opinion out there, and if you're really interested in a game, you can get enough opinions and hopefully find someone on YouTube who thinks similar to you. Because that's why I started reviews, because there were some reviews I saw online where it was like, I don't agree with him, and I can't find anyone coming from the same way as I'm coming at. The big one for me was Borderlands, which is why I made a video saying I think those games are awful and here's why. But I haven't found anyone else with that opinion. So, that's the awesome thing about YouTube. So really, but no one on YouTube is going to get their name on the back of a box, and people aren't going to listen to them in, that much. If somebody sees a 6 out of 10 review, they're going to say it got a bad review, I'm not going to buy it, and then that'll be the end of that game, and they'll just sink them.
So what this all comes down to in the end, what you're saying, is money.
Yeah. Again,
So where's money?
like everything, like money. I'm sure they get paid to give these games a higher score or things like that. I don't doubt that for a second. And maybe not directly, but with advertising and things like that. You know, it's very easy for a company like IGN, for EA or whatever, to be like, you're going to give it a 9.5, just give it a 10. Let's just see that get a nice even 10. You know, you can obviously see that happening, and not just IGN, by the way, just any other company you can kind of see it, and you know, you just gotta be aware of it, really. That's all you can do, but it's just a shame that that's how a review should be. Somebody honestly taking on a game, breaking it down, and giving their thoughts on it. It shouldn't be anything else than that.
Exactly. Reviews have now become a form of advertising, to be honest. That's not what it should be.
It's just become a business. Like giving a game 10 out of 10 is worth much more than buying an advert on TV nowadays. And that's just not the way it should be, but that's how business works, so we're just stuck in this situation. But it's nice to point and laugh at IGN once in a while.
Yeah, well, like you say, just be aware. That's our public service announcement for this podcast.
That's absolutely right. Be aware.
Be aware.
We're just such good guys, just helping everyone out like this. We're just so good. But we're going to end off the podcast. We're an hour and 20 in, so I think it's a good time. So, yeah, I think this podcast went pretty well after the break, and I hope you guys out there have enjoyed us coming back and not just going like, ugh. I hope you've stuck
This
around.
again.
Oh, come on, I thought they gave it up.
Uh,
It obviously wasn't working. What are they doing?
no, we're still here.
Definitely trucking along. So, yeah, as always, thank you for joining me, MrMuckluckable.
No problem, thank you.
And I've been OnStorm23, and we will see you next week.
See ya.